know, if I die here, you're gonna have to live with that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We have an exciting night. We've missed you. I'm Stephanie Chaiken. I'm the director of the Center for the Arts at New Jersey City University. And our Arts Council has been championing us. And the referendum passed, and we have such an exciting night tonight. So I am going to welcome you and turn the meeting over to Heather Warfel Sandler and McAdam Smith from the Jersey City Arts Council to open up this forum.
Hey everybody. I'm Heather. If I don't know you, I'm the co-chair of the Jersey City Arts Council, and my co-chair will introduce himself in a second. We are here tonight to hear from you about the Arts Trust funding. We are in the middle of the process of working with the city to lay out some guidelines about how this should be distributed. And as with everything, it's a priority for the Arts Council to include the community in that process and make sure that when we're meeting with the city, that we are informed about what you think and what your needs are. So, so tonight is for us to mostly listen. We do have some other board members here. Natalie Brathwaite, our secretary, is here, and we are all going to be taking notes. We have an hour, and I think we're going to have a lot of ideas because we're creatives. So we'll do our best to hear from everyone. If we could try to hear if there are multiple people in the group from your organization, we'll try to hear from one representative from each organization. And then if there's extra time, we can go back around. We will use the raise hand feature. Does everyone know how to do that by now in the Zoom world of 2020? Thumbs up if you know how to do the raise hand. Okay, great. If you don't, just type in the chat, I'd like to speak, and we'll get to you. So again, we want to hear more than speak tonight, but just to give a rough overview for anyone who's new to this conversation, the Arts Trust passed, and this is going to be a small property tax that will be dedicated to the arts. The mayor really came through with his commitment to promoting, and so we're grateful for that, and we're excited that the community understands the value of the arts. We have been throughout the process modeling this after the Open Space Fund, which was implemented several years ago. And so if you're curious about, the process, that's something that you can look to. We're modeling it after that in many ways, not every way, but including like the numbers and the process. So what we mostly want to hear about tonight from you is three aspects of this process. One, there will be an advisory board who will be reviewing applications for funding. And again, this is all modeled after the open space process. So that will include each ward council person will appoint someone to that panel, as will the mayor and as will the Jersey City Arts Council. And so that would be the group reviewing the applications. The second thing we want to hear from you on is eligibility. Who should be eligible for these funds and for what operational programs, projects? And then lastly, what kinds of programs and organizations should be prioritized, and what kinds of things will most serve the community? So those are kind of the three areas we're looking for feedback. You're obviously welcome to share any other thoughts and suggestions you have. We'll ask, because nothing has been set yet, if there's a question for clarity, we'll obviously answer it, but as best you can, we're going to ask that you frame your input as a suggestion, a statement rather than a question. So for example, rather than who will be on the committee, tell us who you would like to see on the committee. What kinds of people should serve on the committee? Is there anyone who should not be eligible for the committee, etc. And anywhere we can provide clarity, we certainly will. So I think I'm going to let Mac Adam introduce himself, and then we'll dive in and hear from you. Mac, do you want to say anything or just say hello so people know who you are?
Yeah, hi everybody. Just wanted to say thanks everybody for coming out. We're so excited about the Arts Fund and the work ahead on it, but we really appreciate everyone coming out to share your ideas and thoughts with us. We really believe it's important to hear from everybody, so thanks.
All right, so I'm going to just pop those three areas that I just mentioned in the chat, just to keep it in your head. And Sabrina, and I also just want to very deeply express my deep thanks to the NJCU team, because they handle the tech, which is such a relief for us. And so Stephanie and her team, Anna, Sabrina, and Justin are here to help us moderate. And so if you just click on the raise hand, if you want to begin the conversation and let us know your thoughts, and Sabrina will go through and call on you in the order that we see the hands raised.
For anyone new to Zoom or anyone who has forgotten where the raise hand function is, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a button that says participants. If you click that, that'll open the participants window, and you should see an option that is a blue hand. If you click that, that'll raise your hand. All right, we have a hand up from Annie Kessler. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, hi.
Hey, Annie.
Thanks for doing this. I'm a little confused about the advisory board. I've seen, without being specific, because I don't want to embarrass some history things, when decisions having to do with art and the public were made, extremely incompetent people were put on the boards, and they didn't know anything about art, and they didn't, I don't know if they were somebody's cousin or what, but I kind of think that the awards themselves should be chosen by somebody outside Jersey City, that the advisory board could maybe come up with guidelines of categories and things like that. But I can just see all kinds of the problem of incompetence and not knowing anything about art and getting appointed scares me. And also, even if people are competent and do know about it, infighting, jealousies, distrust could really raise their ugly heads here. So I think if money were allocated to hire outside experts to make those decisions of who actually got the money, I think that would be really good. And even the advisory board, to just have each city council person select somebody who doesn't necessarily know anything about the arts or the arts community is a little bit scary to me. So that's my comment.
Awesome. Thanks, Annie. Annie, do you want to tell everyone, just, I forgot to say this, when you speak, just let everyone know who you are and how you participate in the arts?
Well, I'm on the board for Art House Productions and also for North River Sing. And I'm a singer, and I sing with North River Sing and with the Prom Dates, who you saw on the JCast. We sang, what did we sing on that? Stand By Me, I guess, yeah. So that's how punches. And also I'm married to Charles Kessler, who's done like the whole history of the, you did that thing in the JCast history, and I've worked with him on a lot of that stuff. So I know a lot of history about what's gone down over the last, we've been here about 37 years. And those fears are very real to me.
Thanks. I will share something. Thanks, Annie. And yeah, for everyone, when you speak, just tell us your name and what organization you might work with, or if you're independent artists. I think it would also be helpful to know how you function as an artist. Like if you have an organization, is it a nonprofit? Is it an LLC? Are you an independent contractor? That information is helpful to us too. So Annie, yeah, I had similar thoughts. And so one idea, again, these are all, nothing is set in stone. So I do want to just make that clear. But one idea that we did have in conversation, we're, thinking about that issue, is that maybe there will be a arts experts, people with expertise in performing arts, in visual arts, that are from outside of the community, because again, the community is relatively small and it will be hard to find people who are not in one way or another affiliated with one of the organizations. So the idea was to have outside of Jersey City arts experts have a do a review and give the applications a score, an artistic merit score. So they're evaluating that part of it, that you're right, not just anyone can do. And then that score will be attached to the application that will then go to this community review panel, who has more information about, okay, where are the gaps in our community? What kinds of things will impact the community more specifically, but weighing that that artistic evaluation as part of the process. So, as we go forward, I'm curious if that helps to resolve your concerns, or if people have other thoughts about how that might be expanded. But that was something that we talked about.
All right, we have a hand up from Kyle Marshall. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Marshall. I'm a choreographer and dancer based in Jersey City. And I was also on the referendum committee to help get the referendum passed. I totally agree with Annie about an outside panel helping to make decisions. I think that it would just create a bit more of a neutrality in deciding the artists that get support. I'm also hoping that this fund will fund the spectrum of artists that make work in the city and the spectrum of organizational structures that artists use to make their work. So not just 501c3 organizations, but if there's support for fiscally sponsored organizations, ways that independent artists can get money for their first exhibition, ways that people can, an organization can get money for an event. If there's maybe emergency funds for artists for supplies, and also maybe access for arts education. I also think that it's important that we think about the artists who are born in Jersey City and that we acknowledge and support them as a part of this fund. I think that's very important when we think about the artists that come to the city. I've been here for 8 years, so I'm also a transplant, but artists that come here and artists that are born here, I think that there can be there's a spectrum of accessibility and all these different things. So when we think about who is getting the funding, I think there needs to be a priority or an importance for artists who are born here. I think that would solve a lot of conflict around diversity, around inclusion, if we really start to think about supporting people that have literally made the reason why we come here as artists. So I just wanted to bring that out there and make that suggestion.
Awesome. Thank you.
Next, we have a hand up from Katelyn Halpern. I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi, everybody. My name's Katelyn. I'm a dancer and a choreographer and an artist of other disciplines here in town. And I do that independently without fiscal sponsorship or a 501c3. And I also run Smush Gallery, which is organized as an LLC. And I've also chaired the Performing Arts Committee of the Jersey City Arts Council. So I've got a lot of ways that I'm showing up to this conversation, and I'm so glad that we're having it and that we're all here. I want to underscore a couple of things that Kyle said and then add a little bit. So the spectrum that Kyle is talking about, funding the full range of art makers and organizations that are here is something that's really important to me. I've worked with organizations that are not incorporated in any way, but are doing really great work. I know Jasmine from Vision Coven is here. I just want to shout them out for the work that they're doing. But yeah, this like kind of fixation on the nonprofit model doesn't represent all of the artists that are here making work. And so we need to be able to support people who are here individually, independently, and also who have set up as businesses as well as the tried and true nonprofit model. I also really want to underscore the idea of carving out some money for an emergency fund, whether that's like an artist having a life emergency or a project-based emergency. I think that would be a real kind of kindness that this funding could offer to the artists in the city, especially, I mean, even like setting aside the pandemic, just the rate of, you know, the increase in cost of living here, the instability of trying to live and make work here. I think that could be kind of a lifeboat that this money could offer. Kind of along those lines, this is something that I haven't heard somebody talk about yet in this meeting, but I really see an opportunity for us to move away from like project-based grants and organized distribution with an eye to longevity of art makers and arts organizations. So if we're talking about funding arts education, rather than saying like, well, we'll give you supplies so you can buy Chromebooks, just like fund the teacher and the art teacher will figure it out. And funding the overhead of organizations as opposed to project-based things that kind of look splashy, but don't ensure that we have like a robust arts community that will be able to sustain itself going forward. There was also a question about who might sit on this decision-making board. I think at a minimum, the Arts Council should provide guidance to City Council about how they're going to choose the representative from their ward and just give them a couple of tools for how they might pull in somebody who could be an effective decision maker here. And the outside eye makes a lot of sense to me, but I also think that we're gonna end up with Jersey City people sitting on this board. And I would love to see this rotate for one thing. So like you're on it for a year or two, and then you rotate off, but for the time that you're serving, that you receive some kind of honorarium. Because if you're sitting on the board, you should not be able to get money from the fund because that would be a conflict of interest, but to just like provide some support for the people who are serving on that decision-making body. I think that would be really nice. Okay, two other things and then I'm gonna wrap up. One is that the application disbursement and record keeping or reporting, I think needs to be really accessible, simple, and equitable. As much as I loved like the individual artist grants that we got over the summer, there was like this follow-up survey later that was like, hey, by the way, keep all your receipts and make sure you can show us where all of that money went. And also it's on a debit card, which is like not the easiest way to use that money. I think we have an opportunity to do that better. Recipients need to know what their reporting burden is going to be before they apply. And yeah, checks or transfers, but not the debit cards, because I don't know how I would pay a collaborator off of a debit card. It's just like not very user-friendly on the artist level. I also know that when this was getting put together, there was a concern about money being diverted to other things for the city. And this is more of a question, but like whatever safeguards we can put in place to make sure that this money is actually funding local art instead of, you know, like the 4th of July, saying like it's an arts and culture trust fund. I know that's a cultural affairs activity. So how do we make sure that this money is doing what we intended for it to do? Okay, that's all. Thanks, everybody.
All right, our next hand up is from Jasmine Romero. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, it's Jasmine Romero. You said it right. No worries on that. I work under the artist name Princess. I'm in Ward D, and I'm speaking on behalf of Vision Coven, which is my all-female collagist group. I'd really like to say first off, I love all the suggestions that have been made so far. And I'm coming from a little bit more of a personal angle, I guess. I'm just addressing my concerns as someone who's Indigenous and Hispanic and female. I'm not native to Jersey City. I'm from South Florida, but I've been here 2 years, and I dropped into the art scene almost immediately just because art is what I do. It's my life. And I love it. And as a woman of color, it's very difficult to get noticed and appreciated in the art world. 87% of artists shown in 18 major US art museums are male. 14% of exhibitions at prominent US museums over the past decade were works by female artists. And because Jersey City is the most diverse city in the country, I feel like we have just so much opportunity, when it comes to the arts. And I really want to push for true advocacy of the arts in a way that uplifts the artists in our city, as opposed to pushing them out by pricing them out of their resources. I just feel like, everyone has their role, and artists provide a lot of nourishment and development to culture, but I feel like we're not given reciprocal support. And I just hope that with this new arts tax, we can have accountability and consideration of the everyday artist, especially, minorities, those marginalized. And, I can't afford to live on my own without a roommate. I get paid less than my male counterparts. And, I'm hoping that, funds will go to artists like me, and can guarantee that there's a fair share of funds between male, female, and non-binary artists. Another concern which was brought up is, how can we make sure that it's meant to fund arts and culture instead of, new development? I really just want to see us going towards equal playing fields. And thank you so much again for putting this together. I really appreciate it. That's all for me.
Thanks, Jasmine. Just a couple of things that just to that I can follow up on. I don't think that there will be the parameters for the money going elsewhere. That has to be that the city is in fiscal distress, which is something that the state has to deem. So it's kind of a big deal for that to happen. And so it's not something that we expect. Obviously, we're staying well aware, and but that's not something that we expect to happen. And then there was a question in the chat, just to, as we're all thinking, is it possible to roughly estimate? The estimate for the first year of the tax is about $800,000. And then the same as the referendum stated 2 cents per $100, but that was the maximum. And just like the open space, it started lower and has the potential to grow. But what we are expecting is that the first year would be 800,000. Hope that's helpful.
All right, our next. Do you have something else to follow up on, Heather?
I just think maybe if I answer any questions that I can answer, it will help to inform the conversation. As far as the first grants, that would be at the end of next year. So this process beginning in 2021. And so the first grants won't be before the end of 2021.
Okay, our next hand up is from Summer. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Summer Dawn Reyes. I'm the founder and director of In Full Color. We're an organization that empowers women of color through education and the arts. My principal discipline is theater, but I am also a writer, and my organization also works with artists in all media. So I'm loving a lot of the points that have been brought up. And I did have some response to some specific things and some general thoughts as well. So I think it's really important that people of color and other marginalized groups, that queer and disabled and trans folks are represented ideally in the selection committee as well as an applicant pool. And I would be very interested in knowing if we do have a group of people from outside Jersey City who are going to serve as the selection committee where this will be sourced from. Certainly because a lot of adjacent towns may have bias or connections with folks who are in Jersey City. For example, Newark is a city of very comparable composition as well as artistic excellence, but a lot of us do work in Newark, so there's a possibility there. I realize that an application process could possibly have people recuse themselves from reviewing certain applications. But anyway, I think that it needs to be from a community that is similar in demographic, similar or perhaps even better in artistic excellence overall, for them to really be able to gauge the quality or whatever they are looking for in the criteria. I do think that it should be a full spectrum of art forms and individuals and also organizations. As far as like where Jersey City born folks are prioritized, one note is that Margaret Haig is a huge maternity hospital, and there's a lot of people who can show you a Jersey City birth certificate who've never spent, you know, a month of their life here. So I would recommend that if there is any priority given, that it is, you know, with a certain weight. Another thing to consider is perhaps, I know a lot of folks are transplants, and I am a transplant as well, but I am a product of the Jersey City public school system. I came here in 3rd grade. So I would consider myself a long-term Jersey City raised person. And there are a lot of other folks who were born elsewhere, but have lived here their entire lives. And then the other thing that I wanted to address, I'm talking so much, is the idea of project-based applications. It can be a little problematic, and you get a lot of people trying to write to the grant or for the grant, or trying to create this inorganic project to try to get money. So I understand that is a problem, but I think that it can't be a big general just fund this person sort of thing based on artistic merit. I think there has to be at least evidence of vision and mission for the funds, especially because it's governmental funds. I think most community or government grants that are sourced like this need to have like the people receiving the grant need to show that they have a direction and be able to show how they use the money to successfully accomplish that vision. So there needs to be some specificity. So those were mostly my comments.
All right, our next hand up is from Zach. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello, everybody. I think you can hear me. Yeah, my name is Zach Herchen. I'm a saxophonist and audio engineer, and I'm the director of Convivo Music. Yeah, I want to start off by saying thanks to everyone that's been working so hard to put this together. I was just sitting here in my room remembering that I still have this Percent for the Arts shirt from probably 2 years ago or something when that started. It's so cool to see where we are now. A few quick notes. One was that the debit card for this arts release funding thing was really frustrating, and I was agreeing with I think it was Katelyn that brought that up. Having some things like that nailed down to make the grant more successful, I think, is important. On the topic of operational and project grants, I think those are both really important categories, and I really like the emergency grant idea. I think I'd like to see like several categories that people can be applying for, and mostly what I was thinking about that with when I was thinking about that today was mostly being younger in my career and how much some small grants really helped. So I think I'd love to see a category that could be oriented towards smaller projects, something maybe in like a $500 range. So that could really launch young artists. I think that would be great to see out of this. I was also thinking of a grant system I've used a few times at New Music USA that has some like a really easy application process, but more importantly, after the grants are selected, like the application involved a picture and a description and images and things. And then once you're awarded the grant, that becomes like a live public archive. And I thought it'd be cool if this this grant could have some kind of online system built into it that could also serve like that as an archive celebrating the local arts. And, you know, it could like also support promoting and, you know, showing off all those things. Kevin Clark did do the New Music USA grant. I may have been his roommate for a bunch of years, and I think it was badass and should be copied. All right, that is it. Thank you.
All right, our next hand up is from Aiko. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, good evening. My name is Eiko Laboria, a United States of Women Ambassador for Gender Equality. Basically, that's a nonpartisan national organization co-chaired by Tina Chen, co-chair of Time's Up, and Valerie Jarrett, former advisor to President Obama. Today, I'd like to read to you a statement that I made to the Municipal Council before November 3rd, before the vote took place. In ancient Rome, artists were considered nothing more than vagabonds leeching off society. They were compared to prostitutes and were held in a lower regard than slaves. For most of history, artists have struggled for acceptance, for compensation, and for respect. No other group knows the severity of not being funded and underrepresented in the arts like women, and this is inclusive of all those that identify as women. Women historically have been a marginalized group in the arts, at times even being prohibited from being an artist at all. In the mid-1800s, the Bronte sisters had to use male pen names for such classics as Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. J.K. Rowling of Harry Potter fame was told to use initials instead of her given name in order to give a more masculine appeal. Museums are no different. In a recent survey, only 11% of the art acquired throughout museums in the US were by women. Over the past decade, just 29,247 works by female artists were acquired by 26 top museums in the United States out of 260,470 total works. Only 2% of art hanging in 1,000 galleries in the US are of female artists, and this is not mitigated by the fact that 34% of art galleries are curated by women, meaning that having a woman in the decision-making process of what art is to be selected or hung in galleries does not equal to greater female artist representation. The only way to assure this is to have a strong policy on gender equality, and this is the case across all artistic mediums. In order for the proposed art tax to be truly revolutionary and a fair and equitable template for cities around the United States, there must be a commitment to equally fund women. There must be a commitment to assure that there is a level of transparency in the selection of grant awards that denotes a true change in the way women are represented and equally funded in the arts. To propose an arts tax and not address the massive disparity that women in the arts face falls short on what should be a reflection of the times. If at minimum we do not have any of the women elected officials or women on the Arts Council speak in significant, specific, and serious terms on the discrimination that women artists face, then what is this all about? Are we continuing to push yet another male-dominated agenda? How trite. We have the first woman in the White House. Women are the largest voting bloc in New Jersey. Women are the largest growing voting bloc in New Jersey. In every proposed ordinance, resolution, and decision that this body makes, it should be looking at who are the most neglected individuals and who are most impacted by the proposed legislation, and thus create sound policies around those people. Policy that specifically liberates those individuals, not strengthens their oppressors or suppressors. In the case of the art tax, that would be the women artists of Jersey City. The Art Council should push hard to create policy to assure that women are fairly and equally funded in comparison to their male counterparts. I oppose any of the money being funneled through nonprofits, and I assure you that the best way to make sure that the artists that deserve this money and to get this money in their hands is to actually put it in their hands. Thank you for this time and good night.
Thank you.
Our next hand up is from Elizabeth. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I think I'm unmuted. Hi. I'm Elizabeth Weitzen. I am a theater artist and a dance artist and other things. And I'm an independent artist. I live in Jersey City. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. People had touched on disciplinary representation. It would be important to me that the steering committee have professionals or people experienced in different artistic disciplines, as well as the money being bookmarked for different disciplines, so that you don't get way more representation for the visual arts versus the performing arts, music versus dance, and so forth. I think that a lot of types of art are underfunded specifically in Jersey City. So that would be really important to me. The second thing that I want to say is, I'm just looking at my notes. I think that community building would be a really great thing to come out of this. So whether that's a mentorship program or a like collaborative matchmaking, or I saw Katelyn mention fellowships. I would love it if that money went to some sort of thing that promoted a longevity of relationships between artists in Jersey City. That would be exciting in multiple ways. I think it would be an efficient use of funds. And then finally, I wanted to say that I think space is always a really, really good use of funds. Shout out to Smush, where I am a gallery member, so I get really, really affordable space. So if you funded programs like that one, where artists could get access to space, because almost all artistic disciplines need space, I think that would be a really good way to do things. And not just through like emergency grants or project-based space, but like you need space just to create, and a lot of people don't have access to regular gallery space or studio space. That's it. Thank you.
All right, our next hand up is from Sam Pott. I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Good evening, everybody. Great conversation. So I wanted to add a little bit of input, going back to some of Kyle's comments about the notion of supporting local. I want to second the importance that we really target organizations that are impacting Jersey City, both the artists themselves, providing opportunities, space was mentioned, but also for young people, creating opportunities for young people to engage in the arts, I think is very important. My other thoughts on this are, I also want to second what has been expressed by many people, the importance of making sure that this funding is supporting a diverse and equitable arts field. I want to bring up, there's been a lot of talk about kind of alternative structures of organizations, non-501c3s. And I agree that there's, many ways that people produce arts, from individual artists to LLCs to, there's a real range. But as a founder and director of a 501c3, I want to really reinforce as well the critical role that 501c3s play in the arts sector. And some of the reasons behind my saying this are, a 501c3 is able to leverage arts support in ways that individual artists or LLCs may not be able to. So a 501c3 can take grant funding from one source and leverage that towards further grant funding, which then in turn is translated into programming that impacts the community and the constituents in Jersey City. So I think that if we look at this new source of funding as an investment in Jersey City arts, it's important that we look at how this is not just a kind of a specific amount of money, but that this is an investment that will yield further returns. And so how can we take this, specific amount of money and allocate it in ways that's going to bring additional funding to Jersey City? It sounds like a lot of money, $800,000, but I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not that much money to support a whole arts field in what's going to be the largest city in the state of New Jersey. Many other municipalities have sources of arts funding that dwarfs this. So I think that we do need to be thinking about how this is the start of arts funding for Jersey City, and how can we leverage this for further support so that we're not all kind of clamoring for this one discrete amount of money, but we're looking at how we can leverage this so that we're bringing more arts funding into the community. The other point about 501c3s that I think is important to note is that by their nature, 501c3s have a lot of levels of accountability. So they're accountable for providing audits. They are accountable to a board of directors. They have to adhere to a mission and can endanger their 501c3 status if they veer from that mission. And although it's really important that people who do not have a 501c3 that's up and running can access arts funding, it also opens up a potential for the funding to go to sources that it shouldn't. So for example, somebody could, we talked about the July 4th celebration, or, somebody could claim to have an arts LLC and apply for grant funding, but if there's no accountability for how that organization is structured internally, it could lead to a squandering of the funds. So I think those were my main points, and thank you for listening.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, our next speaker is Shayu. I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Hello, greetings. My name is Stephen Levine. My artistic name is Shayu. I am an artist currently living in Newark, New Jersey. I have been participating in the Jersey art scene for about a year or so, but within the last few months, I've been more active. So I just wanted, I've been hearing people's concerns. I've seen before concerns from artists about focusing on local artists. But one thing that I haven't heard people brought up yet is I've seen actually in the face of people, the concern among the residents of Jersey City and how all this art coming in is going to affect their rent. That's one thing I wonder, where this money is going to be added on to tax. I know it's coming out of property tax. I'm wondering if it's an add-on, which is going to lead to landlords increasing their rent. As I was listening and thinking, I was thinking about maybe a stipend going out to the residents of Jersey City to support the arts and actually be able to buy art. And that way the money will go to the artists and will stay in the community, and some way to really cycle it. And it will also gauge what the residents of Jersey City consider to be the art that they have an affinity for. I think that's pretty much all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Shayu.
You're welcome.
All right, the next hand up is from Rescue Poetics. I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rescue Poetics, Susan Justiniano. I've been in Jersey City since 2006, a poet, spoken word artist, performing artist, and I'm currently on the board of Info Color, as well as Westside Arts and Music. I have also helped founded Everything is a Story podcast in Jersey City, and Open Road Poetry with my business partner, Crystal Letters. I've served on several other arts organizations, and I'm an active artist in Jersey City. I'm concerned that I'm hearing a lot of performing arts and visual arts, but I'm not hearing anything about the literary arts. And I want to ensure that that's also being taken into consideration. Because poetry and spoken word and publishing books and the literary arts are just as important as the visual arts and the performing arts. I think that a lot of the comments here bring up very valid points, and the understanding that 501c3 is an important structure to have because of the accounting. And we're missing, or maybe it's not clear yet, that there's an opportunity here for individual artists to collaborate with 501c3s, where both would then benefit from the arts fund. And maybe artists outside of Jersey City collaborating with 501c3 or a venue here in Jersey City could then bring a different audience to Jersey City, bringing artists from the outside that maybe apply for a project grant through the Arts Fund using a collaboration here in Jersey City. That's another level of grant acceptance or grant possibilities. Having a structure for grants is critically important, especially for artists who have never applied for a grant or don't even know how to apply for a grant. Workshops are very important to educate artists and to educate artists on how that's going to work, what's expected of them before they fill out the paperwork, and to have a checklist and to have people available to them. And understandably, through whatever money is collected in the Arts Fund, there's going to be an administration fee. We have to, that's realistic. Everything costs money. Everything is a business. Art is a business. So we have to treat it as such. And having panelists or a committee from outside, I think a rotating panel is a great idea. And having a score sheet. I just was recently on a panel for an awards panel for outside of Jersey City. And there were specific guidelines on what to look for in the paperwork and what the score was, and then to figure out the score and then submit the score blind, not knowing who else is on the panel. Submit the score with specific instances that you're looking at, and then have all the scores put together. And then after everything's been granted, define who the judges are, so that afterwards those same judges are not included in the panel again. So that's important. I mean, we're big enough, New Jersey is big enough, the US is big enough that we can have multiple panels every 6 months kind of situation. And budgeting and teaching an artist how to budget when they're given a grant, how to work and collaborate with a venue, a 501c3, to provide proper reporting and information for grants is important, because we don't want this to end up being a disaster just a year going in. We want this to grow and thrive and just be a critical part of what we do as regular business here in Jersey City. So those are my 2 cents.
Thanks, Susan.
All right, our next hand up is from Jersey City Theater Center. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't. First of all, my name is Olga Levina. I'm artistic director and founder of Jersey City Theater Center and co-owner of White Eagle Hall. And seeing you all here today and knowing all of you for so many years, I just would like to congratulate. It doesn't matter. We get $5 or $10,000 from this grant or $100,000. We worked so hard, and I think it's time to kind of say, I don't know, come together and celebrate and unite, because this is what it's all truly means to all of us. We put a lot of work into this city. When I was also on the committee for Art Trust referendum, and when we were going for this year, I asked some of the social justice organizations that I belong to what they think, and one of the artists of Jersey City said, "Olga, before you go for it and during the distribution, think where money are coming from. If it is a single mother in Greenville giving you $25 and she has 2 or 3 kids, you have to think about those who are going to benefit from it. And I think as artists, we all have that social justice gene in us. So I think that's the first thing we should be thinking about. Where's the money coming from? Who is giving us the money? And really think about justice here. Not about ourselves, but about the people who are giving us this money. So I believe that Jersey City should come first. It should be 2 boards. One is from City Council that is appointed. And the second one, I believe, should be independent. And actually, I don't know if Meredith is here or not, but we kind of spoke about it and proposed Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, which distributes or helps distribute grants for New Jersey Arts Council. They do incredible job. They very, very professional in arts grants distribution, not only here, but I believe in many states on East Coast. And 501c3 is very important. I have both. I have for-profit arts organization, which is suffering right now, but it's a different structure. It's very important to give priority to non-for-profits because I don't have a salary. I cannot take this money and put into my pocket. I can only get a salary. But if this money goes to for-profit organizations or for-profit businesses, they can take that money and do whatever with it. So I believe that non-for-profit organizations should be first to be funded. And also it's a great, great idea of artists and non-for-profits relationship, because after all, we're here to serve you. So if that money can help us, all of us, to come together and deepen this relationship between non-for-profit and artists, I think that's what it should, because together we can do bigger, better quality projects and really make sure that that money distributed not only downtown, but all over the city. And for someone who works in Greenville, I know how much of deficit we have in neighborhoods like Greenville, like West Side, like Heights. We need arts all over the city, not only downtown. So demographics and geography is very important as well. Thank you.
All right, our next hand up is from
Nicole. I'm gonna ask you to unmute now, Nicole.
Hello. Hi, my name is Nicole DeMaio. I'm also here.
I'm Bradley Frizzell.
Just joining in the meeting. We're roommates, so it makes it a little easier to share a screen. As well, we're both musicians in the area, and we're newer to Jersey City. We've been here about 1.5 years, moving here from Boston. As well, I'm actually a master's student now at NJCU, so both working and also in school here. So just some of the things just to touch on. I just want to echo the debit card from the summer funding as well. Just the only way that I was able to use it, it took out a good amount of fees for me to access some of that money as well. So just again, echoing that as well. And the same thing about just thinking it's important for it to not just be 501c3s. Bradley and I run a group that hasn't really gotten much footing in Jersey City yet, just haven't been here that long, but it's a fiscally sponsored project, not an independent. And we also just do independent work without a 501c3. So it's important for both to be represented in there, to be able to access the funds. And also just echoing, I don't think it's really important for younger artists to be able to access this money, like students as well. Being a student at NJCU, I see a lot of the very young 18, 19-year-old artists, musicians working to buy instruments, things like that. So having some funds available to younger artists who are starting out, I think is really important as well. And just the one other point from me, just I think it's important to make sure that the funding also is funding accessibility, kind of as Olga had said, just thinking of the location, making sure that there are events not just in 1 or 2 locations in Jersey City, that it's spread throughout, so that we can have events in all locations as well, and just making sure that we're maybe there's some priority given to accessible venues or making venues accessible, maybe ones that aren't, with either like physically accessible or money for interpreters, things like that, to make the events more accessible to the audience members, or just, you know, incentives of keeping the entry cost to an event low, so that, you know, it's not groups relying on paid tickets per se, to make money as well. That maybe it's, you know, free or $5 or something like that, to be able to get people from Jersey City into these events as well, if they're ticketed events.
And I just wanted to add as well, coming from, I lived in Boston for 5 or 6 years, and I wanted to echo the statement about creating space for artists to not only perform, but also rehearse. Because that was a big problem of like a mass exodus of artists in Boston, was because all of the spaces just disappeared. So some sort of funding for the spaces. And then also, again, the diversity in the types of arts that are being funded, just so it's not just all one particular area that gets a giant boost one year, and then the small organizations kind of die out in the other fields. And I think another thing that would really help the program is just finding clear ways to disseminate the info to the public about the applications for the grants, because I know that it seems a little bit of a problem with like the summer grant and even the ballot measure, just because like my day job, I work in like a coffee shop, and so I just chat patrons during the day, and it seemed like lots of people were kind of like, oh, what's this? I haven't heard about this. So just finding some more concrete ways, even like just seeing it around the city somehow.
Thank you. Our next and probably our last hand is Rimli Roy. I'm gonna ask you to unmute now.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm actually.
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Rimli Roy. I'm the founder and artistic director of Surati for Performing Arts. I'm actually taking this call from India, and it's like 6:20 in the morning. I just wanted to, there's some beautiful and wonderful suggestions from everyone. I just was making notes while I didn't even have the time to think, because I'm here on a family emergency, but there are some great points many people have made on this group. I just wanted to mention that if we can reserve, like I know that people talked about supporting diverse groups, but if we can reserve for individual artists, us organizations, including diverse individuals, genres, and groups that are working towards the arts. I know that there was a conversation about nonprofits, and there's a lot, of work that the nonprofits do. But my heart also goes out to individual artists who've been working and contributing, people in groups, and they may not have even the access to understand or become a nonprofit. That's a process, I know, because when I first immigrated to this country, I know that there were so many questions, so many things I had to find out before getting the nonprofit started. So, but I'd already started working as an artist by then. So definitely it should be for people who are creating art, people who need the funding. And I know there was a conversation about Jersey City born artists. I would say that artists who are contributing to the cultural fabric of Jersey City, or have been contributing to the cultural fabric of Jersey City, should be considered, whether it's individual artists or organizations. And there was also a conversation about organizational funding as opposed to special projects. I would recommend having both if possible. I know this fund is probably not enough to cover a lot of things, but this is a great start to something wonderful. I see it as something that could be great in the long term. And I think Sam also mentioned that this could be a way to bring in more funding, and I'm totally for that. For organizational funding, I had a question. Like, I know that when each foundation starts funding an organization, and it's for basic funding, for for the overheads as opposed to special projects, will the same organizations be funded every year, or would this be on a rotation basis? Because usually for support like that, it's usually the same organizations that are funded, and more organizations are added onto it. So onto that list. So I think that's something that we could consider. And of course, yes, to this funding conversation for space. Space is a huge issue for a lot of us. So if there could be any kind of a subsidized space that artists can have access to create more work, especially at the time of COVID. I was thinking of ways by which we can have like maybe outdoor space that could be heated for the current situation. But I think by the time this grant goes into effect, it will be probably the end of 2021, as Heather mentioned. And I hope, we're not dealing with COVID by then, but we never know. And also for the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, they have their genres are very varied, and it's great. It supports literary arts, performing arts, visual arts, and there's also something called I think it's a mixed genre. I was thinking if we can come up with something like an open genre that the artists themselves, like keep it like an open genre that artists themselves can suggest, can apply for when they are applying for this grant. So it could be something unique that a particular group or a particular artist works with, a unique genre that combines one or more genres of performing, visual arts, or whatever, and they themselves could suggest an open genre. And then this is just a thought that if this could, instead of like having the usual granting procedures, if we are thinking if there's a way by which we can suggest certain programs or certain projects and themes that may keep changing every year, so that we are not stagnating anywhere with any of the themes. And then the city and the board, having the individual board, of course, is a great idea. Having an independent board, and then of course the board representative in the city council. And if we can suggest, or we can have artists or arts groups being hired to make, have those projects, make those projects go into fruition. Like we suggest certain arts projects on themes, and or artists can suggest certain arts projects and themes, and then you hire individual artists and groups who do not have, maybe do not have space, or this could be an opportunity for them to be hired to, work on those projects and themes, and that can keep changing every year. This is just a thought I had. I think that's a lot that I suggested. Thank you.
Thanks, Rimli. This has been great, and I know the NJCU team has to wrap up, but if you have thought, often when we hang up from these and my brain is turning and then I'm like, oh, and you're putting the pieces together, please email us. I'm gonna drop our email in the chat here. Also, we wanted, Mac Adam, do you want to touch on what we talked about, gathering a list of suggestions for the committee?
Sure. It's just one thought we had, the Arts Council had, that we might create a probably just a Google form, something where people could nominate people that they think would be good applicants for that review board, so that the Arts Council at the very least could have a kind of a running list of people that are qualified and interested in being a part of the board, with a thought that there will probably hopefully be, it will be a revolving board. So yeah, so we'll put that together and share it with everybody. It'll just be a way for us to kind of maintain a database. I think the Arts Council is hoping, we're not sure what the process will be of selecting the board at this point, but we're hoping that at the very least we can be available to offer insight to help the city council if they would like information on connecting with people interested in being on the review board. But we'll share that when we put it together.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, you know, the artists know, so maybe we all know people who in the community who have experience that people on city council might not know. And, you know, we're definitely with you that the people reviewing these need to understand the arts deeply. And so this input is good. And I think we're on the same page about making sure of that. So again, thank you so much. Please, I put the email there, Jersey City Arts Council @gmail. Please email us if you have further thoughts. We will have more of these as we go through the process. And in the meantime, stay in touch. I think Stephanie might have a couple wrapping up things. Oh, also the Jersey City Arts Awards are coming up December 1st. So please come. It's going to be virtual, but I think just seeing that a lot of people are on and watching will mean a lot to our awardees. We have some amazing awardees. We're really excited. And so we want to just make it as special as possible for them.
It'll be.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just because it's a little different this year. We're doing it as a kind of YouTube premiere watch party. So we'll all be live streaming it at the same time. The Arts Council has been hard at work putting together a video that we can all stream, comment, chat. We figured just to mix it up a little bit, since we've had so many Zoom chats, we'd do something a little bit different, but we also wanted to celebrate all our awardees and all the great work that's been done in these very turbulent times in Jersey City. Creativity is still really prevalent here.
Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna let Stephanie close us out.
Thank you so much, Heather and McAdam, and all of you for joining us. The conversation is amazing and inspiring, and we have so much great stuff to look forward to, so thank you very much. I wanted to give a shout out to two programs that we're having in partnership at NJCU and in partnership with the city. Author Crystal Satal will be interviewed by Dr. Edwidge Junta on Thursday at 1 p.m. And then the City of Jersey City Women of Action Awards is Thursday night. So njcu.edu/arts, you can register. And we have another arts discussion meeting in December. So we'll be back to our regular schedule of topics and discussion about specific professional development programs. And we'll keep the chat open for a few minutes now so that people can copy down any notes. And we hope you have an amazing night.